Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we dig into company filings so you don't have to. Today we're cracking open the proxy statement for M9 Homes, a home builder, and it's not just about pretty houses. We will see who's leaving their board, who is coming, and of course a little bit about how much they're paying their top executives. You know, the folks who get to pick out the fancy countertops, metaphorically speaking, of course. First things first, this is a definitive proxy statement, meaning it's the final version going out to shareholders before the big annual meeting in May. This is where shareholders get to vote on important stuff. Speaking of the meeting, mark your calendars for May 14th, but don't book a flight. It's a virtual only affair, so you can attend from the comfort of your couch, which is especially appropriate considering this company builds houses. Now let's talk about who's in and who's out. Friedrich Bohm is retiring from the board. Change is the only constant after all. To fill his spot, the company's CEO is suggesting Yvette McGee-Brown. Seems like she's got the right background with legal expertise and experience on other boards. The board seems to agree as they nominated her. It's also worth noting that the board has determined that most of its members are independent according to the New York Stock Exchange rules. That's board speak for saying they don't have any major financial ties to the company other than being a director. Let's talk risk. The board's role is to keep an eye on the big picture, and one aspect is the company's risk management program. They are focused on different kinds of risk from financial to cybersecurity. In fact, the audit committee is responsible for a big part of it. They receive risk assessment reports from internal auditors, but the overall look is management's responsibility, not the board directly. Of course, these days you can't get away without a little talk about ESG, environmental, social, and governance. The Nominating and Governance Committee is charged with periodically reviewing the company's policies and practices in this area. Now let's get into potential conflicts of interest. The Audit Committee is responsible for reviewing and approving any related person transactions, and they define those as any deal over $120,000 where a director, officer, or major shareholder has a material interest. There was one such transaction last year, the sale of a home to the son of the CEO, Robert Schottenstein, but don't worry, it was all done according to the policy. Alright, let's talk money, specifically executive compensation. Shareholders get an advisory vote on whether they approve of how much the top executives are getting paid. It's non-binding, but if enough shareholders vote against it, the compensation committee might actually listen or not. But at least they'll know shareholders are not happy if that's the case. Time for a little accounting housekeeping. Shareholders are being asked to ratify the appointment of Deloitte and Touche as the company's independent auditor for the year. The audit committee already picked them, but it's good practice to get shareholder approval. Let's briefly meet the key players. Beyond the top executives, there are also a couple of region presidents overseeing different parts of the country, because as the saying goes, all home building is local. Time to talk ownership. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street are the big boys. They are the big institutional shareholders. They own the biggest portion of the company's shares. Now for the part everyone's been waiting for. How much do the executives make? This proxy statement goes into extreme detail around compensation, but let's summarize to make it easier to digest. M9 Homes wants to attract and retain top talent, motivate them, align their interests with shareholders, and reward them for good performance. The Compensation Committee uses an independent consultant, Willis Towers Watson, to advise them on pay packages, so they're not just pulling numbers out of thin air. They compare themselves to a peer group of other publicly traded home builders, names like D.R. Horton, Lennar, and Pulte Group. Breaking down the 2024 compensation, the CEO, Robert Schottenstein, saw his base salary increase to $1.1 million. The CFO, Philip Creek, stayed steady at $750,000, while the Chief Legal Officer, Susan Cronane, got a bump to $475,000. The big money is in the bonus, and they all maxed out. This year, the adjusted pre-tax income was more than expected, and they all got big bonuses. This meant Schottenstein got $4.5 million, Creek got $2 million, and Cronot $620, and Croney got $6,220, and Croney got $6,207,000. But to add, Creek got an additional $250,000 bonus for contributions to the company's performance. For long-term incentives, they moved to restricted stock units, or RSUs, which vest over time instead of stock options, and some additional performance stock units. So what drove these bonuses? They were hitting records, new contracts up, revenue increased, net income jumped, homes delivered increased, but backlog decreased. Balance sheet is in good shape. They also invested big in land. They're also getting car allowance and personal use of the company plane, the CEO and CFO. What happens if they get fired or the company gets bought? They have changing control agreements that spell out the payouts. Just in case of any shenanigans, they have a clawback policy to recover pay if there's any accounting restatements. Finally, the CEO pay ratio. This shows how much more the CEO makes compared to the median employee. For 2024, the CEO made about 96 times more than the median employee. All of this data is from the filling and for disclosure purpose only, so the company can not paint it in any color they want. And now let's zoom out and get some real world perspective. MTI Homes had a pretty great year. Their revenue and profits are up, but backlog is down, meaning fewer homes are sold. They seem to be setting up shop for the future by acquiring lots. The executive pay is directly tied to profit, which they did greatly improve. It appears they're incentivizing the right things, profitable growth. The big concern is debt and fewer homes in backlog. In a nutshell, it seems the company did great and are now focusing on investing for the future. If that plays out, the executives will get paid handsomely and shareholders should benefit too. But we still have to wait to see how the gamble plays out. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this corporate deep dive, hit that like button, leave a comment and subscribe for more dissections of the corporate world. Let me know if you agree with my takes or not, and I'll see you in the next one.